Today, we're diving into how to build an operating model for a project management office or organization. There's no silver bullet when it comes to building these, but what we walk through today is a great approach to first identify how to tailor your strategy, and then from there, how to use one of our templates to help design your operating model to fit that strategy. We'll start with a framework from the book, The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. The concept from the book we're using today is called the STARS model. This model is designed to help leaders understand different business situations to tailor their strategies. Companies typically begin in a startup phase and hopefully grow into sustaining success. From there, they can enter into a growth cycle where they continuously push the organization into a startup mindset and drive innovation and grow into new value propositions and markets. In many cases, the operating models in this cycle are optimizing for speed. The famous mantra of move fast and break things comes to mind here. Many stay in this sustaining success phase where they begin optimizing more for consistency and incremental growth. This often comes with the trade-off of being more risk-averse, that over time, if it turns into complacency, will throw you into the next two phases where you fall behind enough to require a realignment and move into a recovery cycle. If that fails, you fall further into a crisis cycle where the company is in a complete turnaround, where the focus is purely survival. When developing an operating model, it's important to understand what phase your company is in so you can better determine what you're optimizing for and what the trade-offs are. All right, now that we've identified which stage your company is in using the STARS framework, let's dive into how you can build an effective operating model for your project management office or PMO. This model will help guide your design, surfacing key decisions to make sure the structure will align with your company's current needs and goals. Here is a starting template that you can use to facilitate the discussion of how you want to structure your PMO based on the strategy you're pursuing. I know this seems like a lot, but let me walk through it. These models typically anchor on a core process. In this template, we're going with the more traditional functions of project management, which includes strategy and planning, project execution, monitoring and controls, and closure and transition. From there, we'll layer in the capabilities underneath, governance and management over top, the organizational structure, who's essentially responsible for these areas, and finally, the technology and data underneath. So to walk through this in more detail, starting with strategy and planning, this is typically done in larger organizations with some form of enterprise planning group, where they focus on intaking and improving projects, making sure they align with strategy. From there, prioritizing the portfolio and road mapping the programs and projects. These tasks are usually facilitated by a portfolio manager, and they'll hopefully have a project management system that can provide dashboard views of all their projects, timelines, and rolled up metrics. From there, I typically view these two functions together of project execution and monitoring and controls. Here we're kicking off projects and driving the work forward with specific processes to understand if we're on schedule, on budget, and delivering at our quality standards. The individual projects are typically governed by steering committees that incorporate leadership from the responsible and impacted stakeholder groups. These functions are run by the program and project managers, and they're usually using one or various systems to track scope, schedule, resources, and performance of the project. Finally, we move to closure and transition. This is usually a neglected stage, but it's best practice to properly close a project, archive project assets, conduct the lessons learned, and transition appropriately to the team that will maintain the outcomes of the project, whether it be a system that's implemented, a product that's launched, or an organizational change that still needs to be sustained. So this is a more traditional operating model for PMOs, and you can use this as a starting point to talk through with your leaders what areas are critical and require more consistent processes, and what areas can just occur more organically at the discretion of the team executing. For example, when I was helping run a small consulting firm that was in a growth cycle, our intake process was essentially whatever projects we could sell. Our focus in this strategy and planning stage was mostly resource planning and mobilization. We needed a robust talent acquisition process that we could spin up to supplement our core consulting team on new projects we sold. On the project execution side, it was very focused on task and deliverables management, with the priority being the quality of deliverables we were developing for our clients. We leave pretty much everything else to the discretion of the project lead. The things that are being crossed out doesn't mean it wasn't getting done. It just means we didn't enforce a rigorous process around it. We hired well, so there was a lot of trust when it came to project execution. On the monitoring side, we cared again about our cost models, so budget and resource management. On the closure side, we wanted to make sure we archived our assets for every project so we could leverage this knowledge for future work. On the systems side, we didn't have a single project management system. It was a combination of email, PowerPoints, and spreadsheets. We had a standard structure for each project, but essentially we had our scope locked into our proposals and SOWs. Each project provided a high-level timeline, and the main item we tracked was the budget forecast and variance in Excel. So as you can see, this was an extremely scaled down operating model, but it worked out for our small consulting firm that was in rapid scaling mode. Eventually, we had a steady client base and we had to mature our model, including investing in a project management system to formally track and report on our entire portfolio of projects across 3 different practices. So there you go. This is a way for you and your teams to start thinking about how to build an operating model to fit your company's strategy. Check the links below to find out how you can download these templates for yourself. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.